How are we? It's Annalie here. Welcome to today's seminar. We're in for an awesome webinar, I should say, not seminar, an awesome webinar with our 2014 most popular presenter. That's pretty exciting, actually. Now, just a little bit of an intro. We are proud to sponsor these webinars, and when I say we, that's Active Management, for the PT Council of New Zealand. Just a little bit about us. But there we go. In 2015, Active Management, our goal here is to grow your business. Now, our guarantee with that goal is that whatever information we send you, we will have a very clear agenda of helping you grow your business. So this is why we're really happy to sponsor the PT Council of New Zealand webinar series, because we believe they will help you grow your business. Next Thursday, we are hosting an amazing webinar called Road Rules of Leadership. It'll be a fantastic session as Greg Mowbray shares his straightforward guide to leading your team of trainers or even your clients. You can register to attend that one at the Active Management website, and the address is on your screen there. Just simply click on events. Now, we were going to have the wonderful Jean introduce Bevan, but it looks like she's having a little bit of difficulty with the technology. So I'm going to hand over instead straight to the great man himself. I'm going to hit a couple of buttons here.
Okay.
And I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Bevan. Enjoy.
Wait a second. Oops, can I just show my screen? And yes, and can you hear me?
We can hear you well.
Okay, great, guys. Well, I am introducing myself today. Unfortunately, my good friend Jean Scott is having a few technical problems today, which means she's unable to introduce me. And I must say, just while I kind of do my own introduction, I've got to say a big kind of thank you to Jean Scott. For those I know, for those people probably watching right now and have any contact with Jean Scott, to me, Jean Scott is such an inspiration in our industry, and not because just she's an amazing personal trainer, an amazing fitness professional. I don't think I know anybody in the industry who gives so much back to the industry. I seriously don't. And to me, the heart that she has and the amount of energy and time she puts into just developing and doing what's good for the industry, it seems it's so selfless, and it's just something I have a lot of respect for. So I know it's meant to be my introduction, but I just think, far out, Jean, we're very lucky to have Jean in our world. As you can see my screen right now, yeah, that's me, and it's a pretty serious photo of me. So today I got asked to do a talk again. I did a talk for you guys last year, and I did very much a talk based around the whole concept of the career of a fitness professional and how to maybe make a long-term career. And Jean asked me if I could do another talk, and to be honest, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about, like, my role in this world isn't necessarily thinking about how fitness professionals can be more successful in their business. My role is very much about how I can help everyday people learn to love fitness. So today's is probably a lot less structured, and I'm just going to kind of throw a lot of ideas at you and some questions that I explore as a business owner and someone who's trying to be successful, in an industry that's a tough industry to be successful in. So I'm just going to put some questions in front of you and kind of share some thoughts around each of these questions as we go through. So hopefully you can gain some insight. And ideally, I kind of thought that the idea is you can do some self-reflection from this. So the first question I thought about was, how does your world perceive you and your product? And I'm always really fascinated by this, and I think this is a really important question that we should always be contemplating and working on in how we develop our image and our product and our brand. And as I was kind of writing up the slides for this show, I was kind of thinking, I was at the gym the other day, and I'm sure we've all experienced this. I was just doing some weights because I'm trying to get massive and a bit of a skinny runt, and I was just watching a personal trainer, and admittedly this personal trainer's been around for a while, and you could see they were working with their client, but they were kind of doing that thing where the personal trainer is not necessarily paying total attention to their client. And and if you've been a personal trainer, you've sat around for a long period of time, you know what it's like. Sometimes it's hard to sit beside people and just watch them doing their exercise. And so, being around the industry, I kind of knew why he would kind of be a bit lost in thought. But then there's another personal trainer at my gym who's, probably the most successful personal trainer at my gym currently. And you watch him with his clients, and 100% of the time, he's totally present with his clients. Like when they're doing the movement, he's absolutely with them the whole time. And what that does for him is, if I think of the experience of watching those two different people, what was my perception of the different personal trainers as I watched them in that environment? Now, the first person I thought was, well, they're probably a good trainer, but they're not really dedicated to their clients. Whereas the second one I watched, I thought, wow, this guy's really professional and he really is there to make a difference to his client. And I think it's really important that sometimes when we're in our own worlds, we kind of forget about how our outside world actually sees us. And if you're a member at that gym at that moment and you're thinking about which personal trainer you'll choose, it kind of becomes obvious when you start to see how those people, how that client would see the two different personal trainers. And often, if we think about, I want to be a premium product, like the guy who is the good personal trainer at our gym, he's known at charging a really high rate, but you can kind of see where that money goes. Now, he may be bored, I'm sure at times as a personal trainer, he'll probably be really bored standing next to someone watching their movement, but he still stays with them and he's present the whole time. And I think it's a really important question for us to always be thinking about is how is my world seeing me right now? Like when I'm spending time with my clients, the people around me, how are they seeing me right now? And is that doing positively for my business, or is that actually hurting my business? Is it leading to opportunity, or is it dissolving opportunity that could potentially be revenue for me in the future? I think also there's a bigger scale of this as well. So that's kind of very much the kind of professionalism of my contact time. But then I also start to think about, well, what is the perception of me as a person, even out of the day-to-day running of my business? And I thought I'd share an experience from when I was younger in my career. So if I'm known for anything, it's kind of group fitness more than anything. And I teach RPM, which is Les Mills' spin class. And I taught RPM for about 3 or 4 years. And I was doing well in my classes. I had good size classes and all the rest of it. But outside of it, I started doing Ironman triathlon. And when I started to do an Ironman triathlon, something really fascinating happened in my RPM classes. Suddenly, people saw me in a different light. Suddenly, people didn't just see me as a gym instructor, they started to see me as an athlete. And I kind of tapped into this and I thought, wow, these people are seeing me differently. And so I started to share a lot of the experiences of my own athletic experience. I started to talk like an athlete. I challenged them like an athlete. I'd use some of my training analogies when I was teaching my class. And what was happening was the perception of me was changing in their mind. And suddenly I was finding that I was able to have a much bigger impact on what I could get out of those people just purely because they perceived me in a different light. And I remember one guy came up to me and said, one thing about you, Bev, is when I come to your class, I know I'm dealing with an athlete. And so because they saw me as an athlete, I was able to connect with them in a much stronger way, which helped them to achieve much bigger things. So when you think about that, and you think about there's this kind of how does my world perceive me, there's the everyday running of my business. Is it professional? Is it sharp? Do I look bored? Do I look like the personal trainer who's engaged, excited, is there to help my clients grow? And then there's what's the perception of me as a person or my product. So I've got a running product here in Christchurch called Extra Mile Runners, and I like to think that we're perceived, well, we get lots of good feedback from people saying, we hear about your product and it's really great. So within my own community in Christchurch here, we've built this brand that has this really strong reputation. And it's actually a really important asset that we have as we move forward. So to reflect on your own business, I think it's a really good idea to sometimes to stop and almost do that third eye perspective thing, to take yourself out of the day-to-day running of your business and to really see, well, how are the people who look at me as an option seeing me? And what can I do to improve that, both on the day-to-day running of my business and the perception of my business? So have a think about that question. The next question I have, again, there's no kind of order to what I've put through today, so I'm not even sure what the next question I have. Okay, this is I've kind of talked about this one a little last time, but what activities am I doing that actually bring me money in, and which one don't? And this is a really interesting question to explore because we can spend a lot of time on activities that actually generate us no money. And I kind of feel I might contradict myself a little bit later on in today's talk, but I do think it's really important to actually recognize with the time I spend on my business, how much is it money in activity and how much of it is stuff that's actually not necessarily bringing me that great money in. And a classic example was I was talking to a personal trainer not long ago, and they started a team training product. And let's be honest, team training has been pretty great for the industry, especially for personal trainers. It's a good way that if you can get a few people in at a lower price point, you can get some good money for less time. This person was pulling about $100, $120 a session, I think it was, from their group training sessions. But in retrospect, when we audited their time, so what we did, we said, okay, let's look at your week as a 40-hour week, and let's audit the time of your week. And of that time, how much time are you spending and how much money do you make for each of that time? Well, it turned out that she was spending about 4.5 hours for every group training session that she was doing. So she would plan the session, she'd have to travel somewhere to do the session, she'd take the session, there was the logistical side of the session, the money in, the emailing, all that kind of stuff. It turned out that the hourly rate dropped quite a lot by her doing that. And actually, unless she could grow this product into a much bigger thing, it actually was a really non-productive use of her time, and she was much better off just to get a client where she was charging around $70 an hour, and a lot less time and energy for that activity. And sometimes it's really important for us with our businesses to actually do a time audit, to stop, to kind of look at your week and look at the activities that it takes to run your business. And then of those activities, which ones are actually bringing me in the most return on my time investment, and which ones, while it might seem that I'm making good money off, actually aren't. Now, sometimes with the ones that aren't, like the team training product I was talking about with that lady, you may think, well, this is something I'm developing, so I'm willing to put that 4.5 hours in, because if I can get it to 20 people, then that's a great product. But if I only ever see it being a 6-person product, then maybe I'm better off dropping that product and putting one client in and then using the extra 3.5 hours to develop something that can be more revenue inducing for me moving forward. So really, I suppose in this question here is, how are you using your time? Like, when you really think about your business, how are you using your time? And do that time audit and really see, is that money coming from me doing that time? And ideally, what I want to do is I want to be spending my time doing more things that bring me more revenue so I can have more opportunity to create bigger things. So that's my second question for you. My third question, and I love this question, I kind of call this your failure point question. I love this question. So the question is, if I were to fail, what would I know I should have done, but I never did do? So the failure point question kind of goes to that point, and I'll probably share an example here. I have a friend who a few years ago, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, started a pizza company, like a Domino's, but it was a kind of small brand here in Christchurch. And his first store went really, really well. And so he decided, I'm going to expand. He's got a little business model here that he thinks is going to be absolutely successful. Within the next year, he had 7 stores around Christchurch. Unfortunately, a year later, he was bankrupt. And bankrupt big time. He lost his house, he ended up breaking up his marriage, he couldn't kind of restricted his life for the next 5 years because he was in bankruptcy, like this massive life kind of problem that happened to him because of this ambition that he had to grow too quick. And afterwards, he was talking to me about this whole idea of what he learned after he had failed. And he learned that actually he'd been too ambitious, and while he was growing it so quickly, he knew that he wasn't being too good with his books, but he was so focused on being ambitious that deep down he knew he should be doing his work over here as in the financial side of his books, but he never actually did it. And unfortunately, he had to go to the worst point at all, to actually bankruptcy, to actually learn that lesson. But when you look at your business right now, let's say tomorrow you woke up and you had to quit what you're doing right now, what would be that thing within you that I should be doing this, but you never got around to doing, that's actually hurting your business? It's when you break up from a relationship, it's when you lose your job, it's when something you fail at something, and deep down you should have always done that job. As you think about your business right now, what's that thing for you? And if you know it's there and it's clearly not happening, then how can you make it something that you actually are putting time and energy into? Because unfortunately, that might be the thing that trips you up in the long term. So as you think about how I disperse my energy on my business and what could be the things that could ultimately make it fail, and those things that deep down you should do, but you don't do that well, how can I become better at it, and how can I actually make sure that's happening each week of my life in the running of my business? It's a really good question to explore, and I'm sure it may even open more than one door for a few people who are listening to this right now. So I really can't reinforce this one enough. My next question, what are my personal systems? And it's there's kind of a bit of a layer here, isn't there? What are my personal systems and how can I improve them? Now, ultimately, if we look at our industry, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, ultimately, unless you have a business owner, so unless you own a gym or you've got a training studio or you're something else, most of us tend to be sole traders in our industry. And for that reason, personal systems need to be absolutely phenomenal. You need to have a way to make yourself as efficient as possible as a person. And I'm not sure who's exactly listening to this today, as in what the roles you have out there, but if you're a personal trainer, you can spend 8 hours at the gym a day and only be working 5 of those hours. And a lot of personal trainers can lose 3, 4, 5 hours a day kind of just catching up with people at the gym. Now, is that going to take you to where you ultimately want to be in your career? And one thing we need to always be developing within ourselves is, what are my personal systems? So, for example, I'm kind of pretty kind of anal on this stuff, to be honest. So each week, the first thing I do is on a Monday morning is I have a meeting, and it's a meeting with myself, and I always get given a hard time because I have a roll call. I don't have a roll call, but people make out I do. But and the first thing I do on a Monday morning is I pull up my week, and I think, what are my objectives for my week, and when can I slot in all my objectives for my week and plan my week so I can be as successful as possible in that week. And then when I wake up in the morning of each day, I look at that kind of calendar that I've created for myself, and I make sure I'm focusing on that activity as much as possible. There's a few reasons we're looking for here. What we're looking for here is we're looking for inefficiency in our time. And over time, ideally, the person you are now should be, or the person you are 5 years from now should be better than the person you are now in your own personal management systems. And what we're really looking at, there's two things we're looking at here is, how can I be as efficient as possible so I'm not wasting time? But then also, when I am spending time on an activity, how can I be 100% focused on that? I don't know if you guys have ever read the book Getting Things Done by David Allen, but it's a very good book and I highly recommend it. And he talks about the whole idea of, and getting things done is that, so here's a scenario he talks about. Let's say you had something you need to do tomorrow. Let's say you had to take, I don't know, a medicine ball to the gym in the morning. And that night you think to yourself, I need to take that medicine ball to the gym. Okay, yeah, I'll take that. And then before you go to bed, I've got to take that medicine ball. And then you wake up in the morning, you think, I've got to take that medicine ball to the gym. And then as you're eating breakfast, you think, I've got to take that medicine ball to the gym. And then you go to the gym, and what have you done? You've forgotten to take the medicine ball. Well, what you think about there is you've had that thought 5 or 6 times. It's probably interrupted the activity that you've done, that you were doing as you had that thought. And it's a wasted thought because you've had it so many times. And in the worst case scenario, you don't even take the medicine ball. Now, what we want to do is we want to create systems so that if I have that thought, that medicine ball thought, so the night of the medicine ball, I need to take the medicine ball to the gym, I have a system that gets that thought out of my head straight away. So I might have a to-do list that I check before I go to the gym in the morning. And as soon as I have that thought, I write that in my to-do list. Now, what that does is it frees my mind up to be able to focus on whatever activity I'm doing right now. So as we move those 3 hours of the gym a day where you're just being inefficient by just gossiping to people at the gym, and you replace that with work full time that actually is productive and growing your business, then what you're trying to do is remove distracting thoughts so that whenever I sit down, so if I'm sitting down to do finances, I can 100% focus on finances. When I'm sitting down to do my marketing, I'm 100% focused on that. So as I work through my day and my week, I'm becoming a higher level person who is more productive. And with the time that I have when I'm being productive, I get the most effective work out as possible. It's a good idea sometimes also, as we think about your personal systems, is to sometimes just pull yourself back from life, kind of like I was saying with that third person perspective, is to stop and look at how you are currently doing things and see if they can be improved. So an example from my life, I do my weekly finances every Thursday morning, and I kind of developed this system for doing about 5 years ago. And about a year ago, I just sat and I stopped and I thought, okay, well, what am I doing with the system and where are the inefficiencies in the way I'm doing it? And I actually managed to save myself an hour out of a 3-hour task by just stopping, looking at the way I was doing something and making myself more efficient in doing that. So that gave me an extra hour a week just purely by just stopping once and doing that. So you may look at the way you write programs. Does the way you write programs take you 5 hours? Could you improve the system of doing that so it only takes 4 hours? Now, if you could do that through your whole work-life structure, maybe you could gain an extra 5 or 6 hours a week, and you can choose to devote that to your business, you can choose to devote that to your own time outside of the business, whatever, but you can kind of see what I mean. And I think that ultimately, as you think about yourself right now, what are your personal systems? And are they that efficient? Where can I improve my efficiencies, and where can I evolve them so that I can be more productive and more focused more often? The next question I have, what do I actually love doing about what I do? What do I actually love about what I do? Now, this is a really interesting one because there is a little bit, I kind of feel I may contradict myself a little bit here, but there is a little bit of, there's always going to be a level of my job that I have to do that I don't absolutely love. And I know that we feel very fortunate in our industry because we are all very passionate about fitness, and there's lots of kind of mental and social and esteem rewards that we get from being in the fitness industry. And so we're drawn to it. And then there is the aspects of the jobs that you may not necessarily love, but it's a necessary evil of running a business. You may not love doing your books, but you know they need to be done. You may not love certain aspects of your job, but they must be done. But ultimately, I think we should be working towards a place where the majority percentage of our time is doing the aspect of the job that we love. And I thought I'd share my experience with you on this. So I work for Les Mills. I've worked for Les Mills for 15, 16 years now. And I love what I do at Les Mills. Like I teach group fitness. I do body attack and pump and all those programs. And when I first started working at Les Mills, I was drawn to the group fitness, and I loved it so much I thought I needed to get a job at the gym. So while I was at the gym, I started personal training. I started doing some other jobs and just picking up the odd job at the gym, just so I could earn enough income to do the thing that I ultimately loved, which was group fitness. After about a year and a half of personal training, I realized that actually personal training wasn't the thing I was most passionate about. Personal training was the only reason I was doing it was because I wanted to do group fitness. Now, for those who are personal trainers, it's not saying that you can't, you know, my opinion on personal training, it just didn't work for me. I like working with groups of people. But the only reason I was doing it was because I loved group fitness. The thing was, I also realized at that moment, I didn't care to get better at being a personal trainer. I wasn't trying to evolve as a personal trainer. I wasn't challenging myself to be better for my clients. I was just doing it because I wanted to do group fitness. And once I realized that and I understood that, I made a hard choice. I made the choice of giving up personal training and just doing the thing I loved when I was at Les Mills. So nowadays when I go to Les Mills, I walk in the door, I go teach a class, it's a thing I absolutely love, and then I walk out and then put my other energy into other things I love. So like my running business, which is group running, my little one-on-one mentoring, which I really love. So now I'm spending more time doing the things I love. And sometimes in this industry, we love aspects of our jobs, but there's other aspects of our jobs which actually we maybe don't need to do and actually are restrictive to us because we're only doing them because we want to do the love aspect. If you were to pull away from that, like I did with personal training, I've been able to do many other things because I pulled away from something that was ultimately just feeding my love. So this is a bit of a tough one because there are aspects of your job you have to do, but just really when you think about the different components of your job, which ones do you love and how can you ultimately create a world or a life where the majority percentage of your time is spent doing that stuff? So just stuff to think about there. Mark Cuban's question. So Mark Cuban, I'm not sure if you guys know who Mark Cuban is. Mark Cuban is this very successful American businessman. He's kind of, when you think of kind of capitalism, he's kind of the kind of prime example of it. Mark Cuban is this guy who's very successful tech entrepreneur. He's quite an outspoken public figure in America. He does the Dragon's Den program over in America. And he's an interesting character, but he is a very successful businessman. And I listened to an interview with Mark Cuban a while ago, and it was a really interesting interview. And they had this question for him, and they said, what would be the most important thing a business owner could do for their business? And his answer was, a business owner's main role is sales and marketing. A business owner's main role is sales and marketing. Now, this is a little bit different for us because if we look at the world that we're in, you do tend to have business owners, but the majority of people who work in our industry are sole traders. So we're very much just working for ourselves. And so we tend to be quite limited on our income because we're limited on the time frame we can work. So most personal trainers are good for, let's say, 40 hours. That's all they can do in that time. So this point here is kind of going to that next step. And that's, do you need to develop a product outside of your everyday business? So let's say you are a personal trainer and you are doing those 40 clients a week and you've got a good little business happening. Do you want to be doing that same level of just one-on-one work for another 10 years? Now, if the answer is no, then you probably need to do some product development. And really, what would be that product for you? So for me, that's my running business. We've created this extra mile running business in Christchurch, and that's our product. And I've put a lot of my free time into developing that business into a reasonably successful business now. And once you've developed the product, so the first job for you is, if you're trying to step away from you becoming a sole trader, is what is my product and then just to allow some time to put that in it. But then ultimately, how am I selling it? And really, a lot of your energy, like if I look at my business now, and I'm lucky because I've got staff and that who do a lot of the work that I don't need to do, but 99% of my energy goes into my sales and marketing. No, that's unfair. 30% into product development and the evolution of product, and then the rest of it goes into just how can I get more sales and marketing. And really, if you are someone who does want to take that next step, you really need to ultimately work towards getting yourself in that position of how do I become more sales and marketing with my product. So first it would be product development, but then from there is how am I selling it? You know, how do I become better at understanding sales and marketing, and then where do I do more of that? If you are someone who's newer to the industry and you're a young personal trainer and you don't have a full book of clients yet, well, to me, obviously your client experience is your product. So how do I keep evolving that client experience? But then when you are spending that 5 hours at the gym just sitting around waiting for clients, to me, that energy should be put into your sales and marketing. Ideally, how fast can I fill up that 40 hours with paying clients who are willing to pay a premium price for my product? So I really like this idea, and I think it's a really important question. A lot of people spend a lot of energy into things that aren't about making them a successful business. So what's your product? Where is my product at? And once the product's developed, how much energy am I spending on sales and marketing? This is a really important question to explore as well, and this is what skills do I need to develop? And because one thing we see in the industry is you see a lot of people who just keep developing themselves in their fitness skills, and obviously that needs to happen. You know, you need to have the qualifications that our industry requires. You need to keep developing. You know, we're such an evolving industry. Look at the dietary side of the industry right now. You know, there's a million different arguments on what's right and what is wrong. So there's this, you know, we are an evolving industry and will always continue to be. But as you develop yourself, you need to develop yourself outside of just fitness. And you see a lot of people who do this, they just keep doing fitness courses all the time, and they don't actually do business courses. You know, if we go back to Mark Cuban's point, you know, like people think that marketing is just putting a Facebook post up. Well, that's not marketing, that's just putting a Facebook post up. You know, how do you make the most out of Facebook? Have you spent 20 hours learning how the best marketers on Facebook make sure that when they spend $1, they get $2 back? You know, that you're developing these understandings of the business running of your skill so that you can then become this much bigger product. So as you think about your personal development in your career and your business, it's not just, hey, how do I understand the latest nutritional guidelines or the latest kind of, you know, exercise physiology kind of stuff. It's more, how do I develop myself to be a successful business owner? And then how do I devote time to make sure I'm doing courses, mentoring, and work that's actually developing my skills? If I look at my own skill development nowadays, I do the necessary that I need to do for the fitness, so I'm up to date and I'm current, but most of my development nowadays goes into how do I be a successful business person. And if you want to have a long-term career where you have a big impact, to me, there needs to be a little part of your weekly or your annual development that goes towards business courses. I think also it's really important as well because, you know, let's say you do move on to different industries in your future, business skills are skills that can take you anywhere. So there is that aspect of it as well. My next question, do you ship? I'm kind of going back to product here a little bit. Do you ship? Now this is a question I love. Do you ship? I'm an ideas person, so I'm a guy who has like a million ideas. And when I was a young man, I had a billion ideas, and but none of them ever happened. And I think I always get caught up in the idea that, you know, ideally, you know, I have this idea, this is a great idea, and then I get excited by the next idea, and at the end of the day, I never created anything. And as I transitioned into someone who was a bit more you know, in control of my own time and energy and what I could achieve in life, one of the things I'm most proud of is the ability to ship. And what I talk about when I say, do you ship, is, does the idea that I have ever end up on the market? Does the idea that I have ever end up on the market? And that's the idea of, do I ship my product? So if we go back to Mark Cuban, you may decide, you know what, I do want to create a product outside of my personal training business. I'm willing to devote 5 hours a week to it. What is that idea? And then in 6 months from now, is that a product on the market? Because if not, then you're never actually creating the product. And the do you ship question is more just a responsibility question. Are you doing the work that it takes you to get your product to the market? Because you're never ever going to make that big big change or the big profit or anything if you never ship. And so as you think about the ideas you've had, have you shipped in the past? Can you look and see, like I love the idea of my body of work. What is my body of work in my lifetime? And I'm quite proud of the fact that I've got, these things that I've shipped that really show that I've kind of done this body of work. And as you look at your body of work, is it a lot of ideas that never led to anything? Or is it actual products and services that are out there in the market that are having an impact in the way that you feel important? And so this one's just one of those questions that I think I always just have in the back of my head. Have I got an idea? Is it worth taking to the market? Are we shipping? And if I ship, I'm doing a good job. And then from there, once you ship, you can evolve your product and so on. So again, just kind of a more personal responsibility question, that one. The next question, this is probably the last one. I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. This is a big one. Who are you outside of fitness? And this is a little bit away from business because I've got to be honest, I think our industry is amazing. I love our industry. I love fitness. I feel very privileged to have a life in fitness. I'm also concerned that our industry creates very one-dimensional people who are actually quite insecure because they're so dependent on one side of their lives. We are an industry where we get a lot of esteem. We get an unfair amount of social prestige because most people struggle with exercise. So the fact that we are good at it, they put us up on a pedestal. And they put us on this pedestal in an area it's actually not hard for us. Like the idea of me getting out and going for a run tomorrow isn't hard. I know I can do it. I can choose to make it hard, but getting out and going for a run isn't hard. For 90% of the population, the idea of going for a run tomorrow is impossible. So they look at me or people like us and they think, wow, these guys must be so strong because they can go for a run. But to us, that's easy. That's actually not challenging. And what happens for a lot of people in our industry is because we get this so much esteem, prestige, recognition, and so on, we just keep developing ourselves in only one area of our lives. And you see a lot of people in the fitness industry who become very, very one-dimensional as people, and they actually have nothing outside of fitness. And I'll be honest, I was that guy. Like I really was. When I was 30, I'm now 30, nearly 38. But when I was 30, I woke up and you could look at my life and you could say, this guy's really successful. I was doing Les Mills DVDs. I'd won New Zealand fitness instructor. I was an Ironman triathlete. I had all these markers to show me that I knew how to achieve goals. But if I had nothing outside of fitness, I'd neglected all my friendships outside of fitness because I just was always trying to chase the next fitness goal. I hadn't developed other sides of my esteem. I was very vulnerable. If I broke my leg in that moment and couldn't do fitness ever again, who was I? And at that moment, I actually had this moment where I broke up from a partner because I was too selfish. And I realized I was quite lonely. I wasn't in a very healthy place in my life at all. And I realized at that moment that there needs to be more to me than just fitness. And at that moment, I started to develop different sides of myself. So now I play music. I play piano every day for about 2 hours. I still have fitness. I still love fitness. I'm a business owner. I've got a partner who I love and I get to spend a lot of time with. I've got other hobbies and interests that make me a more complete person. And I think in our industry, while we can be seen to be healthy people to the outside world, there's actually a lot of very unhealthy people who are stuck and trapped. And one thing we often do is, our world is very much helping other people, and so sometimes after a while you'll come in and you exercise is always about other people, so you need something for yourself. And what do we tend to do? We tend to look for fitness goals. But if I can encourage anything, if you think about yourself right now, and you look at yourself and you think about your life, are you just one of those people who's just extremely strong in one area of your life, but kind of really lacking in others? And maybe instead of just trying to find more fitness goals, maybe it's time for you to develop other sides of yourself that open you up to other people, other life experiences, to weakness and vulnerability that can grow you in ways that fitness maybe can no longer do. I think this is a really important thing to be thinking about because I know when I was 30, it was a really horrible time in my life. And nowadays, if I break my leg and I can't teach fitness ever again in my life, it'll break my heart because I love it and I'm passionate about it. But it doesn't matter because I've got other things to do in my life that I can go on to. And I want to be the person who has many dimensions that make me a whole person, not just one dimension where I put all my energy into. So as you think about yourself right now and you think about yourself in your career and just as a person, are there sides of yourself that you're neglecting because you're putting too much energy just into your own fitness life? and how can you spend a bit of time on developing other sides of your esteem, your confidence, your life experience, even people. Like I play in a band, and the guys in the band, they don't give a crap about exercise, and I love it because it's nice to go to talk to people who don't care about what they're eating, and all that kind of stuff. Our world, we're all kind of obsessed, and so like it's really nice to be surrounding yourself with different types of people as well. I just think this is a really important point, and I do see a lot of people, particularly people who tend to get a little bit older in the industry, especially in group fitness because it's a young man's game. They get to the other side of that time and they have nothing in their life, and that's actually a pretty scary moment. So if I can encourage one more thing today, it would be develop the whole you. Don't just become the person who just lives at the gym 90 hours a week and has nothing else to talk about in their life. I think that's pretty much it. So I'll just quickly wrap up. I'll just quickly go back through them all. So just to quickly wrap up, once again, how does your world perceive you and your product? And what's that third eye look that you have in your world? What are the activities that are bringing me money? That time audit thing, and how can I be more efficient with that? If I were to fail, what's the work that I know I should do but I'm not doing? And how can I actually be doing that so failing isn't an option or it doesn't happen? How do I become someone who's more efficient with my time and more focused in my time? What do I actually love doing? And ideally, as I think about the work that I do, I should be spending a percentage time more in that percentage time than the work that I don't love doing. Mark Cuban's question, what product am I trying to create? And then how do I get myself to the point where I'm selling and marketing? What skills do I need to develop myself outside of exercise? Am I the person who gets the product to the market? And who am I outside of fitness? That's pretty much my talk today. Hopefully you guys get some insight into that. If you want to check out my work, you can go to my blog, bevanjameseyles.com. I've got my podcast there, Fitness Behavior. And if you just want to flick me an email, ask some questions, I'm always keen to kind of have a yarn to anybody. Thanks for your time, guys. Hopefully you got something from today's talk. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Bevan. That was just wonderful information. Now, just before we clock off for the day, I've got a little challenge for you as well to officially wrap up. At Active Management, we do like to challenge you after all of our webinars. So we have what we call a JDI challenge. Now you'll see on your screen there, it's a Just Do It challenge. We want you to do something in the next day and within the next 10 days and the next 20 and the next 30. Do something with the information that Bevan's given you today. Listening's one thing, but implementing is something else. It's harder, but it's more important, or as important, of course. So take 60 seconds, the first 60 seconds after we shut down the webinar, and write down what immediately pops into your head in terms of what you can do with the information you learned from Bevan today and when you'll do it. What you'll do in day 1, day 10, day 20, and day 30. Bevan's given you so much information, so don't waste it and implement it. Thanks once again today to Bevan and the PT Council of New Zealand, of course, on behalf of Active Management. Thank you for your time, your expertise, and we will see you again next time. Everybody, have a great day, and thanks very much.